because I think softwares are typically sold as like it's one click and you're set up and you're ready to go. But the reality is that it does take a level of expertise. And I think even meeting you, like when I had met you, I remember I said to you, like, I'm a CRM expert
Yeah.
because I had configured a CRM for a couple of clients and I've used a CRM before. So I was like, I know everything that there is to know. And the more we spoke, the more I realized that there's just so much more, I guess, expertise that goes into it and things that you need to think about in terms of reporting and how you want to, like, if you need, what's an example? Like
Certain data points. It's pretty
what,
much like
yeah.
if this is like at the end of the day, what is the ultimate report that we're trying to get from upper management? And depending on whatever that answer is, you should maybe set up custom fields with multi-select dropdowns or single select dropdowns, not text fields. And people don't realize, I guess, okay, cool, just create a custom field and make it a text field. And it's like, you're never going to get reporting capabilities on that because you made that one decision. And now all of this data is going to be deprecated because people are inconsistently filling it out. So it's about consistency, processes, and structured data formats. It's not sexy stuff to talk about, but it's like, you need someone to champion and think through that before setting it up.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the burnout that happens with people is that if you're trying to set up a software that works for you, like a CRM, and you're in there and you're trying to configure a few fields, but then you run into the issue of not being able to pull the reporting that you want, or like what's another common problem, like a common thing. Well, another one is like an integration. You're trying to set it up really simply using Zapier, and then you feel really frustrated. I know I felt this way before of like this should be really simple. There's like a button that I need to click and it's not working. And then before you know it, you've spent like 3 hours trying to do this thing and it still is not working how you want it to work. And then you start feeling stupid. Like, why? Like, is it me? But in reality, I think what I'm trying to say is since meeting you and seeing the level of knowledge that you have to make things work together so seamlessly, it's like, no, we're actually not supposed to know. Softwares, I think, are sold. And I get why they're sold that way. It's easy, set it up really quickly. But in reality, you have to put a lot of thought into how you set up your software to actually make it effective for your business. And I think that's when working with a consultant comes in handy because they've seen, tens and tens of accounts that have already been set up. So they can say, hey, here's how you need to set it up to get the most out of it for your business. Because in reality, a lot of businesses are very similar as we know. When it comes to processes.
And I guess one of the things that I learned a lot, especially lately, as I was transitioning the business more into essentially like a product as a service or software as a service, it's that the biggest difficulty that these software companies have is actually onboarding. They can have the most robust, powerful tool in all of existence, but the product team time and time again struggles with how do we onboard these customers to get them using the CRM and the capabilities without having to touch or speak to anyone else? Because that would be the golden ticket. Essentially, you sign up for the software and the software intuitively teaches you how to use it, but that is so rarely the case. Yet you're going to have companies like Asana that are going to make it sound like, yeah, sign up for this and project management projects will take care of themselves. And it's taken me 4 years of using Asana to get it to a place that I'm like, I think it's actually finally working for me. So I think that's the part that is really, I guess, deceptive. And it's not really necessarily, I guess it's not their fault by any means. It's just teaching software is very difficult. Using software is very difficult. And the great marketers will make it seem like it's easy. They will say, Copper integrates with MailChimp. Well, guess what? Every single client that we've worked with that uses Copper and MailChimp, it does not integrate in the way that they want it whatsoever. Similarly, it works with QuickBooks. So on the marketer could just say, hey, yep, Copper, yep, we integrate with QuickBooks. And their sales team could be like, yep, we integrate with QuickBooks. But when you're actually working with a client, they're going to say, okay, cool. So this integrates with QuickBooks, right? So I want it. So when we move to this stage, it's going to create an invoice and send it to the customer. And it's like, oh, no, that's a custom integration. They're like, wait, what? I thought you said that it integrated with QuickBooks. No. Like you can view top level open invoices when you're on a customer record on QuickBooks. It's just like kind of a view only sync. And what people actually typically want are kind of workflow automation. So they're doing their job. As they do their job, it starts doing things for them. So they have a reporting QuickBooks integration, and most people want an actual workflow process integration. And I think that's the biggest disconnect that I guess I've seen working in this space, especially. Marketers ruin everything, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, but not really.
And I'm partly a marketer, so I guess you can say that to me. But I mean, I've experienced it myself, and having a pretty like Monday.com was one for me that I love their marketing. I love their interface, and I was so excited to set it up. And I remember getting it and even doing some basic setup for my team and then sending it around and being like, hey guys, we're using Monday.com now. And it's like, this is so cool. And then it's like crickets on the other end. And it's like, hold on a sec, there's something wrong here. Wait. We're not getting this right. And then it's like slowly getting some of the team onboarded, but like it's just not flowing. And I remember just being so frustrated at like everyone that I was working with and myself. And I was like, this is just not working for project management. And I think that's, again, you get that dopamine from setting up a new software. And you've said this to me before. When I signed up for a new software, Alex is like, you're on the dopamine high right now. Just wait until you actually have to implement it. And then once that wears off, it's like, okay, let's think through how literally everybody on the team is going to use this cohesively so it starts to sing and dance. And that takes a lot of thought and a lot of trial and error and a lot of communication. So I don't think it's realistic to expect that you can implement a software and then it's like, oh, voila, it's done and it's doing what it says it's going to do. And I think it's also not fair to the software companies because all of these softwares from Monday to Asana to Copper, they're fantastic software.
Incredible, yeah.
They're really great platforms, but we can't expect ourselves, like if you're not, what's the Olympic athlete analogy you always use? Like you can't go into, you say it.
You essentially, I think people think really, again, marketing really makes you think that you're smarter than you are in certain ways. So I think Zapier is the prime example. People dive into Zapier because it's so accessible and it feels so easy to use. And then they get frustrated when they're trying to connect like one step to the next. And they're like, hey, I'm trying to push this in. I'm getting an error message. It's like, totally understand and don't feel stupid because it's taken me 6 years of using this thing, learning APIs, being a developer. I'm a developer and I still struggle at times with it because APIs are weird and confusing and they're not as straightforward as they seem. So I empathize with people that are using Zapier and they're getting frustrated. But then similarly, they reach out to a Zapier expert like us, for example, and then they're like, hey, I almost have this thing set up. Like, we're pretty much good to go. I just need a little bit of help. And they want to spend like $50 or $100 or like whatever to get this thing set up. And it's like, hold on, like, what are you using this for? How can we actually build this in a way that will do more? And I think people just try to take so much on themselves. And it's really that thing where someone's running a business and how much time should you be spending learning software versus running your business? And
so true.
You shouldn't be spending your time learning software. You should hire an expert or at least work with an expert to help you get to where you need to go and save time in that way.
Yeah. And to that point, I mean, you've helped me set up a Zapier integration. I was doing one between a software called ClickFunnels and Shopify. And here I am again being like, I can do this. And I live with you. So I'm very lucky that I'm like, hey, this isn't working. What do I do? And he ended up coding something to make it work. And I remember just being like, I would have never figured that out. And because you have that level of knowledge, this was solved in like 5 minutes. But in reality, there's just no way that I would have known. And I consider myself, technical. Depends who's watching. To some people, I'm very technical, and to others, it's like, no. But so I guess what we're trying to say is if you're feeling burnt out and you're feeling frustrated that a CRM or any software is not working for you, it's actually not you at all. Yeah. And that's why we wanted to talk about this, because we're just seeing it come up over and over again.
So, I mean, so much, in fact, that I guess I was bringing this up a little bit earlier as well, that like Salesforce is an industry that has existed. They're one of the largest companies in the world. And along with the software component, there's like a $7 or $8 billion a year partner network. And that's just service-based services atop of Salesforce. So people like me that do Salesforce consulting, I do Copper consulting. And the industry of the consultants is actually larger than the software itself, which is so bizarre. Yet now we are moving to these SMB CRMs and people are setting them up and they're like, this isn't doing everything that Salesforce can do for one. It's like, yep, you also didn't spend $250,000 on between the software and hiring a consultant and getting all this set up. Yeah. But there's something about like, but I'm also spending a lot of money, which I also understand. If you're a small business and you're spending $50 a user a month or $60 a user a month and you have 5 seats, like it's a substantial amount of money that you're spending per month. But realistically, the software is only going to do what it's going to do, and actually setting it up, like you should be investing the resources into setting it up properly. Because now every year and every month that you're paying for the software on a proper foundation, you're going to get more from it each time. And the value, I guess, the rolling value that comes from CRM is having it set up properly and then using it over a long enough period of time, having clean data in the system, not just running with it ad hoc and just like everyone's adding random custom fields and things in there. Because it's like, okay, cool, we've been using the CRM for 5 years now. Let's pull in insights out. And it's like, well, actually, you guys use text fields for everything, and we actually can't pull any insights out of this.
Yeah,
so
which is a nightmare for any business.
So why did you spend any time logging stuff into
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
It was a waste.
Yeah. So I guess our advice is, if you're feeling that way, like we said before, it's normal. And then, yeah, in back in the olden days, companies hire IT teams or consultants to set up these softwares, and enterprise companies still do that. In SMBs, it's not there yet, again, because all these softwares are do it yourself. However, what we're saying is, if you start looking at implementing software into your company as a bigger task than you think it is, it's not something that should be done between 9 to 10 p.m. while like the CEO is in bed, and then he's like expecting that it's going to be implemented by tomorrow and his sales team should be using it by the next week, or her sales team. Hey. So what we're saying is, make a plan. So if you're going to implement a new software, I think working with a consultant is really smart, because you're going to save a crap load of time, because someone like Alex can be like, hey, here's 5 things that you should do right away. And they can tell you things that have worked for other companies, and then have an internal champion of somebody who's going to run with it and set it up internally, and then allocate the proper time, allocate days and hours worth of training consistently for your team. And that copper champion really needs to be the person who's keeping everybody else accountable. So instead of looking at it as like, here's the small 1-hour task, look at it as, this is going to be a 6-month implementation to really get this up and running to the way that we want it. And that way, the companies that do that have a really healthy start, a really healthy foundation. And then they're not the ones that are constantly flip-flopping and being like, hey, should I change my CRM? What should I be using instead? Should I be going to Salesforce? It's like, no, because you set this up right from the get-go. And that also results in burnout, when you're constantly wondering if there's,
there's
what's
a better
that
solution.
shiny object syndrome, when you're constantly thinking, hey, is there something out there better for me? Because in reality, like, a lot of the CRMs are exactly the same.
Yeah.
The
part that is absolutely mind-blowing is that a lot of this is the backbone of most of it is the exact same. Like a CRM is a CRM is a CRM.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's slight opinionations. So for example, if you're using Google Workspace, Copper integrates very deeply with it, more than any other CRM on the market. And a lot of their resources are going toward that. So it's like, that's one of the positives. But one of the negatives is like, they might not allow you to work as flexibly with like multi-select dropdowns as maybe some other CRM. So it's like, there's these little pieces that it's like, well, if that's really important to you, maybe you should use a CRM that does. Or if you're using Office 365, maybe you shouldn't be using Copper. So there's little things that can kind of direct you in the right direction, I guess. But going to a different CRM is not going to solve your problems. And I want to speak.
You're just going to be in the same problem over and over again for a multitude of years, instead of actually just having a solution that, has that.
You're going to keep starting from scratch and never reinvesting. You should have invested enough into setting up the foundation that you wouldn't want to leave, because you're like, I just invested, $10, $20, $30,000 into this thing, and it's actually doing what it needs to be doing. And when you do it properly, when you invest resources properly into software, you don't want to change softwares. You don't have shiny object syndrome, because there will always be a better CRM. A new CRM will come out tomorrow, but do they have the resources and the team behind them? But it's probably going to be better in many different facets. And you can't run a business by switching the software constantly. You need to focus on running your business and just have a software that does what you need it to do.
What were you going to say? I cut you off there.
The customer champion, I feel like that's something that just, it is so, I know that the largest companies in the world struggle with it. Asana struggles with it when they're taking on a massive, massive client, where it's like, okay, cool, we have like 500 seats from, Netflix or whoever is using them. They struggle with getting customer champion. So they've asked us in general, like just the other Asana experts and things like that, how we deal with champions. And with that, it's such a struggling question, I guess. Struggling question. I feel so struggled to answer it, because it's like, typically if it's a small enough team, it's going to fall on the CEO, and the CEO is not the right person to be doing it. But like, who is the right person?
I'd say somebody like a sales manager or a project manager, or someone like, or whoever's going to be in there using it every day is the best person to do it. So I don't think it should come from the CEO either. I think it needs to come from somebody
Yeah,
like
the CEO can speak
ops
to,
person or something like that.
if you're large enough where you have an operations person, that would be super
But they
helpful.
need to be using it on a
Yeah.
regular basis. So don't let it be like somebody who is just in charge of setting it up, but is actually so disconnected from the reality of what the team needs.
Yeah.
So even if it's like a sales rep or something like that, I feel like
To
that's,
champion, yeah, because I mean,
yeah,
I've also seen the path where people are like, "Cool, like, we have an IT department. IT department's gonna run with it." And it's
no.
like, they don't they're so disconnected from what it's actually being used for and the processes and systems. Like, they could understand technologically in a sense of, "Cool, we can create some custom fields." But you actually need people in the system. So here's a good example. We have a client that has an IT person that's running it, and they are creating custom fields when people request it. And then the actual sales team is like, hold on, there's like 5 different custom fields for like employee or number of employees within the company. One's a drop down, one's a single select, single select, drop down, the same. One's a drop down, one's a number, one's a text field, and there's all these different things. And then the employees are like, I don't know which one of these to fill out. And there's so many custom fields that they don't fill anything out. So it's like, if you just talk to the sales team and you look at the CRM because you're living in, you're like, wait, why are none of these fields filled out? And that's super easy to see if you're using it. But if you're just the IT person, it's like, cool, yep, I'll add another custom field for you because you requested it.
Yeah, it's so
That's
it's
not
so
gonna work
true.
either.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of that bit of a rant of sorts.
Yeah. Well then, that's it for this video, right?
Yeah. We'll give this a try again in the future. Hopefully this helps some people. Cool. No, bye.
Bye.